Today we're going to be working with the retouch underscore pilot file. So I'd like you to launch Photoshop and open that file wherever you have it on your desktop. So go to the pull down menu, File, Open, and find your file, and then save it. Excuse me. So save as your last name and retouch underscore pilot, and we're going to save it as a Photoshop file. So save it as Photoshop and save, and there you have it. Okay, with this exercise, we're going to be using the Move tool, which is up here. We're going to be using the healing brush here, spot healing brush, and the healing brush, and the patch tool. We're probably going to be using the clone stamp tool and the dodge and burn. That's to make it lighter or darker. The grabber hand, because we're going to be moving around this file a lot, and the zoom tool. Okay. So the first thing we're going to do is we are going to create a copy of the background layer, because we don't want to hurt our background layer, which is something I've been talking to you about. You want to preserve your photo. So you're going to double click that so you can type in original. You're going to change the name. It's going to be called original, and say okay. And then you're going to go to the hamburger or the flyout menu. It's called a bunch of different things, a couple things, flyout or hamburger. And we're going to go duplicate layer. So we're going to duplicate that background layer, and it's going to be called working layer. Okay, so highlight it and call it working layer. Okay, so now we've got our two layers. And what we're going to do is go up to the rulers. My rulers are showing, but if yours are not, hit Command R, okay? And they'll show up. I'll turn mine off and I'll turn them back on. Command R. And we're going to actually use our rulers. We haven't used our rulers yet. So, well, yeah, we have in the car exercise. So we're going to click on the ruler and drag down. And see that blue guide there? We're going to use that to line up our photo. So we're going to select the working layer and hit Command or Control T, which gives you some handlebars, and then I'm going to zoom out, Command minus, and they're selected. So I'm going to hover outside the corner boundary box and just turn it, rotate it. So now we've got our file straightened. So I'm going to apply the transformation with this check mark or hit return. And now we've got a straightened file ready to work. And we're going to be working on the working layer, making our changes. Okay, so now we're going to zoom back up. Command or Control plus, which will zoom up. And you see you've got a file that has lots of imperfections on it. And I'll zoom up a little bit closer so you can see. There are lines through his face. There's all sorts of lint on the background. We've got a cruddy edge here. So we're going to correct all these things with our retouch tools today. We've got the pinholes in the corners. You're going to eliminate those. We've got scratches on the airplane. We've got stains on his pants. So we're going to correct those. It looks like grease and oil, and on his jacket, because this is the only photograph this family has of their relative who was a pilot during World War II. So they want to restore this photo to a working condition, to a really nice condition. So you've been given the job. So let's see what's going on. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to go up to the top area, and I'm going to show you the spot healing brush because this is the most fun. Okay, I have a really tiny one, and I'm going to enlarge my brush by just hitting the right bracket. So that's big enough. I'm going to hit that one big bright spot on my airplane, once and look what happens. It just, the spot goes away. So I'm going to hit some of those, so because they're kind of fun. And then I'm going to take this up to these holes that were created by push pins or something. I'm going to make my brush a little bit bigger, and I'm just going to center it right over that hole and just hit once. And there you go. It's like magic. Okay, I'm going to hit it again. I'm going to scroll down, hit it again, hit it again. And what you're going to be doing with the tools that I'm going to be showing you is you are going to be working and cleaning up this file. And it's going to take you this whole class period. So please don't rush it, and maybe even into Monday's class period. So what I'm going to do is show you the tools, and then you're going to be on your own doing this. So once again, I'm going to hit this side of the plane with the spot healing brush because it'll take care of them. This is a great tool, and it's just so much fun to use. Okay, so you can actually use a brushing action if you want. So I'm getting rid of some of those dents and scratches that are on the plane. Okay. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go to the edges. So I'm going to do the simple stuff first, and then we're going to get into the more difficult things. I am going to use the clone stamp tool. So we're going to go over here, and when you use the clone stamp tool along with the healing brush, which is not the spot healing brush, it's another one, you actually take samples of an image and you sort of copy them over. Okay, so what we have here, I'm going to turn off my original layer. So we have some areas that we need to clean up. We need to copy this gray part and move it over here. So what I'm going to do with my brush, I'm going to make it a little bit bigger. It's a little dinky. I'm going to take a sample by hitting Option, and you get that target like image, and that shows that you've copied that color, and we're going to paint over here. Now what it will do is it copies all of this down here too, so you just have to keep on resampling and painting. Now another easy way to do that is if you take the eyedropper tool and we select this color, and we take our good old marquee tool and you draw marquee all the way down the edge, and well, I didn't make it long enough, so I'm going to add to selection. There we go. And our gray is in the foreground color. So I'm going to go to Edit, Fill, and foreground color. Hit OK. And there we've got it. So I'm going to deselect that. And we've got that nice crisp edge full of that color, and we don't have to do the clone stamp. That's what they sort of suggest that we use is the clone stamp tool, and I just don't think that is the right tool. Okay, so let's do it again. Let's take our eyedropper. Let's sample that bottom corner, and let's take the marquee tool, drag it all the way down, edit, fill, which is a little bit different than using the paint bucket, and we got the foreground, 100% opacity. Okay, there we go. Now we might have some harsh edges down here, which we can use the spot healing brush for. So let's try it one more time. And what you want to do is sample, whether you use the clone stamp tool or the eyedropper tool, you want to be sample near where you're painting. So because there's variation in color. So we're going to sample right there. And we're going to just finish off this last transparent bit. Okay, and so I'm going to go Edit, Fill, and fill it with that color that's in our foreground. So Command D, and there we go. Looks pretty decent. Okay, so we're going to go out And check it out. We've got a little area down here. So once again, I'm going to take that eyedropper tool and I'm going to create a selection. So I'm going to use my straight edge marquee, rectangular marquee, and then go up to edit fill. And I'm going to fill that foreground color right there. And then Command or Control D deselects it. And there we have that. Okay. So we filled that. I mean, you can turn back on the original just for the heck of it. But we turned it off because we wanted to see the areas that we had to paint. All right. So now we've got the spot healing brush. I showed you the little clone stamp tool, which we will use again when we get into the face, but face is the most difficult part. We're going to take care of all the other surface areas first, and then we'll head to the face because the face is tricky. Okay. So I'm going to zoom up and see, let's go into the clothing area and see what we have to take care of there. So I'm going to zoom up. And he's got some grease and spots here and some grease over here. So we're gonna use a couple tools to take care of that. Okay, I'm going to go under the spot healing brush and use the patch tool. So I'm gonna make a selection, you circle that, and we are going to hit source and we're going to move this down. So find a source and then Control or Command D and deselect, and there we got rid of that. So we're going to do it again with the patch tool. I'm going to select it, make a selection with the patch tool. And it's on source, so that means I'm going to sort of get rid of this by moving it to another area. Now you can also do a destination where you can cover this up. So I'm going to do like a selection above it and say destination, and that's going to copy it and put it on top. So there's two different ways you can use that, either source or destination. And they're the same things, but mostly people use it clicked on source because what you do is you get rid of the areas that you are selecting. So I'm going to select that and I'm going to move it over to this area, which is a little lighter, or let's see, I should do it over there. Let's see. Okay, Control or Command D. Yeah, that's pretty good, but you're going to be constantly sort of touching up areas that you've worked on with other tools. Okay, so let's go back to the spot healing brush, and I'm going to get some of these areas right here. And takes care of them really great. I don't know what's going to happen there. Okay, now this is a tricky area right here. So I'm going to zoom in on it, and let's see, what are we going to use here? I'm going to try to use, I'm going to use the patch tool again. So we're going to go under the spot healing brush, grab the patch tool, and I'm going to select that area. And we have source on, so I'm going to move it right over here. And it's going to pick up those pixels. And Control or Command D. And that looks pretty darn good. Okay, so I see there's this, I don't know what's going on here. I think it'd be better if we just got rid of it. So I'm going to select it, all of that. It's a couple tones in there. Get the marching ants, and I'm going to move my selection over to an area that I want it to copy, and Control or Command D. So it's pretty good. Let's use the patch tool one more time here. So select it, and then let's move it up to this area. And Command or Control D. There you go. Now there's a little darker area here, so I'm going to switch back to the spot healing brush, and I'm going to make my brush a lot smaller. So I'm going to get rid of these areas. There's one light one and one dark one. So there we go. And there's all sorts of little flecks. So I want you to just have fun getting rid of it. This is like another kind of Zen exercise where you just have fun doing these simple kind of mindless things, but it makes it a better image. Okay, now this area is a little light. First of all, there's this part, which is whiter than the rest of the image. So I'm going to make my brush a little smaller, and I'm going to hit it once with the spot healing brush. Okay. Now what I'm going to do is we're going to use our dodge tool. So I'm going to make that a little bit lighter. That's what the dodge tool does. So you're going to get your brush. Actually, I want to make it darker, not lighter. So I'm going to go to burn. You're going to get your brush a little bigger, and we're going to just exposure 27%. I want to make that a little bit higher. So let's go to 50. And so it kind of tones it down a little bit, which I think is better. And I'm going to just connect that shadow there. There's a shadow, so there was a little lightness, so I just wanted to connect that. I'm going to make that a little darker there too. And we could use the burn tool to make this all a little darker too. Let's see how that works. Yeah, it looks fine. Hit that there. There we go. So that overall, I think I'm going to try a little one more time. So you just sort of paint the area with your tool. Let's go out and see how we did. Well, those areas look really good. Now we've got these fine lines going down the image. So we're going to have to address that. And we're going to address the line going through his face too. So we got to choose the correct tool. What we are going to do, I zoomed in on his face. We're going to get rid of that line. And I'm going to start working with the spot healing brush with a very small brush. And let's see what happens there. That worked out pretty well. Now I've got some areas here. I might try the patch tool again. And I think that will work out really well. So I'm going to select this area and I'm going to just move it right over here. Okay, and then Control or Command D deselects it. So I got rid of that smudge that was down there. And I'm going to zoom up a little bit. And I'm going to use the healing brush again, spot healing brush. And I'm going to get rid of these. Now you got to do it a little bit at a time because we go into different values. So I don't want you to smudge your piece. This can be really tricky. Here I'm going to use, believe it or not, the clone stamp tool. And I'm going to do a really small brush. So I'm going to sample it right here. I'm going to go over here and paint. Now, I didn't like that, so I'm going to do it over again. Option, sample there. And I'm going to use the patch tool on his tooth. Let's see what happens there. So I'm going to copy this tooth over onto that tooth. So I'm going to move this, make a selection. Okay, and then I'm going to click on destination because what I'm doing is bringing this right over there. Let's see how that goes. Command D. Well, it's okay. It's not perfect. And I'm going to use the spot healing brush to get that little line up top. So I'm going to make my spot healing brush really tiny and zap that. Zap it again. zip all these areas in here. So it picks up the pixels that are in that area and it copies them and puts them down. Okay. So what I want to do here is I want to use the clone stamp tool again. So I'm going to make my brush really small and I'm going to hit Option because that's where I'm sampling it. And I'm going to paint right in there. It's too light. So I don't really like that. Let's see what happens if I take the spot healing brush and go on top of it. It's a little bit better. So you work in a combination with these tools to get the effect you want. We don't want to wreck up his face. I got to go back to these teeth. These teeth are not looking good. I'm going to use the dodge tool again. I'm going to lighten up this area. Let's see if that'll work. Yeah, that's doing it. That's good. The tiny brush. Yep. So basically what you're doing with this file is using the tools that I've shown you. I don't really think the healing brush is something that we need. I can show you the healing brush before we do the composition assignment, but you don't really need that. The spot healing brush does a better job than the healing brush tool. And you do the similar things with the clone stamp too. Okay, so I'm going to use the clone stamp here before we go and let you guys turn you guys loose on this. So here's the clone stamp tool. And what I'm going to do is paint this part of his lip. So I'm going to sample this part of his lip. So get your target. That's that. And so now I'm going to paint over here. And when you use this tool, you've got to sample a lot. So I'm going to take another sample. Okay, now I'm going to take a sample down here. And when you use this tool, you can go to Window, Clone Source, and it shows you, you can move. If you create a new layer, we're not doing that. But this is something that you can use in the future. Every time you do a sample, these will be your sort of like a palette, so you can go back there and use them again. But we're not really using that. I just wanted to show you that it's there for future use. Okay. I'm going back to the healing brush, and I'm going to try to get some of these areas out. And every time you go into a different value, you just want to change your brush, and maybe you want to make it smaller. I don't know, but that's looking pretty good. It's not looking bad. The area down here still has a little line in it, so I'm going to zoom up. See that? So you have to use your zoom tools, go in and out, use the correct tool. There's a spot on his eyelid that's kind of annoying. Here, let's get rid of that. So it really does, you know, this brush does a lot, which is really cool. But then you can go back in and use your dodge and burn tools. Now I'm going to use let's see if we can use the spot healing, just the healing brush tool. Okay, so let's see, I'm going to go small. And I'm going to sample this area, Option or Alt for the PCs. And we're going to paint that. Yeah, worked out pretty good. Okay, so now back to the spot healing brush. So very carefully work within the values that you have. I mean, that's not really. Okay. So I'm gonna save, and you guys can start working on yours, and we'll take questions as we go. So good luck. We have another part of the exercise that we'll get to once you're done with your retouching. We're gonna make our image file big, and you're going to slide over your working layer so we can see your working layer with next to your original, so you can compare the before and after.